Hello, this is Chat UTD and this is my preview of the Fulham game. Tomorrow we're also going to look at the other stuff that's been going on at United this week. New signings, an injury and a new contract for Bruno. Let's start with tomorrow night. First up, Fulham, a team that in previous couple of seasons, particularly under Marco Silva, they've controlled games against United really well. Last year they beat United at Old Trafford for the first time in 20 years. Even in other games where we've managed to win in the last couple of years against them, it's been despite being controlled throughout the game by Fulham, or a late goal, or against the run of play. We've won those games, and I think that's something that we must improve this season, is controlling games. And I think that's the way Ten Hag wants to try and play. If you look at his Ajax team, ball retention was good. They were able to make quite quick progress up the pitch using nice technical interplay, triangles that progress through the lines, play quite a high line defensively, and he hasn't done that at United. A mixture of not having the personnel to do it and not choosing the right format to try to do it, not choosing the right players when I think we have got some technical players that he chooses to overlook. And this season I feel like he probably will want to put his own mark on it a bit, and with De Ligt and Mazraoui, we have two players that help him to do that, but I think there's still pieces of the jigsaw missing. So tomorrow will be a good test in that respect. I'd like to see us control the game and win the game. Last season we played Wolves on the first game of the season and we won 1-0, but it was a really worrying insight as to what was to come. We were completely outplayed. The season before that, we got beat by Brighton at home. You want to start with a bang, you want to get some momentum, you want to get that optimism going, and we haven't had that in any of the first two seasons under Ten Hag. And I think part of that is that, alluding to a video that I did a week or so ago, that you come into the first game of the season, normally, you've got 3, 4, 5 new players that you can look at. There's maybe a slight spring in the step. Sometimes it's a new manager, sometimes new shiny kit, whatever. And you're thinking, right, new season, new hope, blank slate. Very quickly, United get back down to earth with a bump because it's the same players that were playing the season before. So why are we expecting different results, or why are we expecting anything new? I think the exception this year is, I hope that there's a very real intent for Ten Hag to try to do it more the way that he's probably wanted to from the start. For example, if De Ligt and Martinez play, we can play with a much higher line. In fact, I think I'd go as far to saying the biggest word in the dictionary in many respects is if. If De Ligt and Martinez stay fit, I don't think there's many better centre-back pairings in the Premier League than those two, but it's a big if. I think that can really change the way we play if those two can stay fit. Ball retention has to be so much better this year. Taking the ball in tight spaces, being able to deal with it in pressurised situations, and I think it calls for more technically gifted players. Ahmad, is a classic example of that. Ahmad really needs to get his head this season. He needs to play, and he needs to get 20, 30 games under his belt because he is a technician. The more I look at what Ten Hag wants, or certainly what he had at Ajax, the less I see a place for Rashford. If I take my views of Rashford out of the equation, we've got to look at his skill set. He's a counter-attack suiting player. That's why he scored all those goals a couple of seasons ago. I think if you try and play with him on the wing, when you're playing a high line and you're encouraging the high press, he doesn't press. I think the pitch is condensed, so you need more technically gifted players in tighter areas. He's not that. You're probably not going to get in behind defences as much because they're probably going to drop a bit deeper. And as I say, it calls for technicians, of which he is not one of them. I think tomorrow he'll probably start up front because I don't think Ten Hag could seriously look himself in the mirror and play Rashford ahead of Garnacho or Ahmad, where Anthony came from. So what he does with Rashford this season is going to be really interesting. I think it's managerial suicide to continue to play him, in particular if he wants to play the way that he played at Ajax, because he just doesn't fit that way of playing. So it's interesting to see how that pans out. In other news, obviously, say De Ligt and Mazraoui are signed on. I didn't want Wan-Bissaka to go, but I can see that Mazraoui probably represents a step again in the direction of where Ten Hag wants to go, and more of a technical fullback who can pass the ball well and can get up and down, and probably in the final third is a bit better. More of a like for like, perhaps, for Dalot, and also, of course, if Dalot goes over to the left, which I think is pretty much going to be needed quite a bit, then Mazraoui fits in there. Interestingly, both of them have had their injury problems, which, you know, if it goes well and they don't have injury problems, they're two very solid signings. If it goes the other way, you have to ask questions as to why we bought two players with the injuries that they've had. In terms of centre back, as a looking at that whole picture, we've now got 7 centre backs. Is that right? Saying that out loud doesn't feel right. Martinez, De Ligt, Yoro, Evans, Maguire, Lindelof, 6. I'm sure there's another one. No, there isn't, is there? I think that's it. So there's 6 centre backs. There's even talk maybe that we might still go back in for Branthwaite, which I don't think would be true. And I think if we did, we'd have to bin off both Maguire and Lindelof. And really, you'd be thinking, what's Evans sticking around for? But even with the ones we've got now, I think we've got to be looking at getting rid of at least one of or both Maguire and Lindelof, because we're pretty stacked in that position. We've got 3 potential centre-back pairings there, which means that every week 4 centre-backs are sat there twiddling their thumbs. Johnny Evans ain't be bothered about that. Yoro's injured, and as a youngster maybe would be more patient towards that, although I think he needs to play. But Maguire and Lindelof, you know, what's their part in the team? Where do they come into it? Luke Shaw's out for 6 weeks as it stands, but left back's a problem, because we have to come to the realisation that Luke Shaw isn't going to be fit enough, and surely Ten Hag has to know as well now that you can't rely on him to be part of your plans long term. That's not based on any prejudice towards the lad at all. He's a super player when he's fit, but his injury record over the last 10 years is poor. He arrived in 14 to 15 season, I think. Yeah, so it's 10 years. And should have really done my research. How many games has he played? I don't know, but it's not anywhere near what you would think it would be for a player that's been at the club for 10 years. So you've got a lot of evidence to suggest now that he can't stay fit for long enough. I keep coming back to the word elite that Ineos have used, and he's an elite left back when he's fit, but those 4 words, when he is fit, are massive, because the reality is he isn't fit often enough. He's England's best left back when he's fit. He's one of the best left backs in the Premier League when he's fit. He's a transformative player for United when he's fit. But it's okay just continuing to say when he's fit. He's not often enough, and it's a problem. So I'd love to say we probably cut our losses, but who realistically is going to sign him? He's on big wages, and his injury record would put people off. So I think he's one of them that we're going to have to wait until his contract runs down. In fact, I think there's probably quite a few that maybe we might have to be patient with in that respect, because there aren't any takers for them, or United aren't going to take the money that's being offered up. But if he's not going to go, I think as fans, and certainly more importantly Erik Ten Hag, needs to realise and understand that you can't rely on Shaw to be a part of the plans moving forward. If we could, wow, what a defence we'd have. That word again, if we had Shaw, Martinez, De Ligt and Dalot or Mazraoui fit all season, that's a really good looking back four. But my concern is injuries. We need a midfield player. I think there's people getting carried away saying things like, only on Twitter, no one important, but people on Twitter saying if we get Ugarte, what's to stop us going for the title? That's absolutely ridiculous. Ugarte is a player that PSG don't want because they've signed a player who we couldn't afford, who we did want in Neves. So Ugarte is a stage 1 player, as I've mentioned many times before. This is those stages that we're going to have to go through with Ineos, and that's good. And he's an improvement. He will improve that area of the pitch, I'm sure. But he doesn't take us from 8th to winning the league with the other signings we've got. He probably helps us to challenge for what we already should hopefully be challenging for anyway, which is top 4. And I almost think this season, more importantly than top 4, to generate a way of playing and to develop some form of identity which is exclusive to the new regime, rather than just plod our way along and hope to kind of get through by hook or by crook, which is very much what it feels like we've been doing for the last 5-6 years. In terms of style of play, Mourinho played with a deep line defence, heavily reliant on counter-attack, if he bothered to counter-attack at all, because sometimes he just defend and celebrate a 0-0 like we won the European Cup. Solskjaer, counter-attacking manager, had dalliances with trying to get us playing further up the pitch, but never really anything sustained because it didn't work because we haven't got the players to do it. And then Ten Hag's first 2 seasons has been much the same. So I want to see us move in a direction this season. Preferably I'd want us to finish top 4 or 5, but if we don't, but I can see that we're moving in a direction that's very purposeful and very distinctive, then I'd accept that. I say that, maybe I'd be sat here moaning and saying that we should change tact so that we start to get more results. I don't know, but right now at the start of the season, I look at that squad and it's not good enough. So it's very much reliant, I think. Our success will be defined by if we can keep the right players fit. Martinez is critical to United. If we can get another midfield player in, at least one midfield player. There is talk of Ugarte and the fella from Burnley. And if what he does with Rashford. And as I say, I think he'll start as a striker tomorrow. But if he continues to play and continues to be at the level that he was at last season, which I don't see changing, then serious questions have to be asked. Do you know, thinking about technicians, it's a shame that Sancho's such a scrote, because I think his profile of player that he is probably suits what Ten Hag wants, but his attitude's nowhere near good enough and he needs to leave the club. So City in the Community Shield, we were better than I expected us to be. I think some people are reading things that I don't believe were there. Maybe there's some tacticians out there that are smarter than I am, but people are sort of talking about how different it looked, how we went toe to toe with them, how we put our style onto them rather than the other way around. I just thought we did well at what we needed to do well in that given situation. I don't particularly think there was any definable style of play that was different to what we've been doing before. So I want to see us move towards that. I'm going away on holiday tomorrow early, so hence why I've done this today, and also probably won't watch the game because it'll be 9 o'clock where I am when it starts. It's the first night of a holiday with my family. That's not going to go down well. So I will do a match reaction from the hotel, probably on Saturday or Sunday. But it will be based on what I've seen and heard rather than knowledge of the game, because I probably won't have watched it. Let's hope it's a good start to the season where we win the game, control the game, and start to see some shoots of some chinks of light towards something sustainable that we can move forward with. And you can but hope. Glazers out.